Hello and welcome to IP Study Video Lectures. And today we are going to discuss Chapter 14 from Grade 8 Social Science, and the name of the chapter is Manufacturing Industries. In this chapter, we are going to cover some important topics like classification of industries, factors affecting the location of industries, industrial system, industrial regions, industrial disasters, and lastly the distributions of major industries. So now, let us first discuss what economic activities are. So economic activities are those activities by performing which we earn money, or by doing those activities we earn monetary benefits. Okay, and economic activities are divided into three categories. Firstly, primary, secondary and tertiary activities. Okay, I repeat again, economic activities, it is divided into three: primary, secondary and tertiary. So what are primary activities? Primary activities. So primary activities include activities like agriculture, farm, mining, fishing, lumbering. So all these come under primary activities. One thing we have to understand that the product that we get from primary activities might not be possible to use directly, or it needs some transformation. So we have to process and transform the products that we get from primary activity in order to consume or use it. Okay, so this process of converting or transforming raw material into finished products that we can actually consume is called manufacturing. So manufacturing is a process that transforms or converts raw material into finished products. Okay, so therefore manufacturing industries is classified as a secondary activity because it is engaged in not production but transformation of raw material into finished product. By production, I mean not directly producing from the nature. Okay, it is using the raw material from the primary activities and it is converting them into finished products. For example, we get oranges from nature or from primary activity. In order to get orange juice, we have to process the orange. Okay, so this is the manufacturing part or manufacturing process. Now let us define industry. What are industries, or what is an industry? So industry refers to an organized economic activity. So it is a very organized economic activity which involves good production and providing of services. So industry not only involves the production of goods but also providing services. So we also get services from industry. For example, tourism industry or hospitality industry, we can say that we are getting this service from these industries. Okay, so now one thing we have to understand that a country's economy depends on the level of industry. As such, when the industry grows, the economy of the country becomes more stable, or we can say the economy of the country also grows with the growth of industries. Now let us come to the first topic of the chapter, classification of industry. So industry can be classified on the basis of their size, the raw material used, end product and ownership. So there are four normally categories that we can actually classify on. First, on the basis of size, raw material, end product and lastly ownership. So now let us discuss on the basis of size. So what do you mean by on the basis of size? So industry can be classified on the basis of size, and size means the amount of labor that is used, the amount of capital that is invested, or the volume of production. So how much labor is used, how much capital is invested, and what is the amount of production or the volume of production. So this means the size of an industry. So on the basis of size, industry can be classified into three types. First, cottage industry, second, small scale industry, and lastly, large scale industry. So now let us discuss cottage industry. What are cottage industry? These industries are small scale industries, and these industries are operated normally in the house of the workers. Okay, we do not need a specific big building or structure to run these industry. Cottage industry means this industry can be run in the house of the workers, and the labor can be the family members home. Okay, for example, basket making, or for example candle making, for example khadi cloth weaving. So these are all the products that we get from cottage industry. For example, this is a picture of cottage industry. See, we do not see any sophisticated or hi-fi technology used here. The simple people working, and the products that can be produced are also very simple. So cottage industry. Now comes small scale industry. Small scale industry refers to those industry that do use a bit, we can say the labor that is used is more than the cottage industry. Okay, also the capital invested is also more, but it is not very large extent. The extent of labor and the capital use is not very large, but it is more than the cottage industry. And small scale industry do require some structure. It cannot run in the house of the worker. Okay, so simple machines and equipments are used. A smaller amount of capital is invested, and also labor is also used, but it is it's very less. Okay. Now, what are the products that we get from small scale industry? Clothes manufacturing, toys, furniture. So these are all the products or industry producing these products fall under small scale industry. Now comes the large scale industry. So what are large scale industry? Large scale industry provide employment to large number of people because they employ large number of laborers. The capital investment is also very huge, and the machineries are also sophisticated, or we can say modern, and heavy investment is implied, or we can say investment is very huge in large scale industry. For example, heavy industry. What are heavy industry? Like iron and steel industry. This industry cannot be run in the house of the workers, or this industry is not possible by gathering few laborers and collecting or investing small amount of money. It requires large amount of money, large amount of labor, and also huge and sophisticated machinery. And the economy of a particular country depend on large scale industry, because all the material that the large scale industry produce is very important to run the economy. For example, if we have a automobile industry that produces vehicles, so the raw material which an automobile industry, it is the final product of large scale industry. Okay, so iron and steel industry produce steel and iron, which is used in the production of vehicle in automobile industry. So without large scale industry, we can say, or without heavy industry, we cannot we can say that the growth of the country is not possible. Now, second category is the classification on the basis of raw material. So on the basis of raw material used, industry can be classified in 5 types: agro-based industry, mineral-based industry, pastoral-based industry, marine-based industry, and forest-based industry. So what do we understand by agro-based industry? These industry use raw material that are the product of plant or plant-based products. For example, vegetable oil production, or cotton textile, jute textile, sugar, tea, coffee. So all these industry, they use raw material that are derived from the plant or plant products. Secondly, mineral-based industry. The raw material for this industry is derived from the minerals like iron ore or aluminum ore to produce their product. For example, heavy machinery is also used, and for example, we can say iron and steel industry, aluminum industry, petrochemicals, cement factories. So all these, they do not use products that is derived from plants. They use products like minerals, natural minerals. Okay, for cement we need lime. Okay, for iron and steel industry we need iron ore. So minerals are used as raw material in this industry. Thirdly, pastoral based industry. As the name suggests, this industry use animal products as raw material. For example, leather industry, meat processing industry, woolen industry. Okay, so animal based products are used as raw material in this industry. Fourth, we have marine based industry. So these industry use products that are derived from ocean as raw material. For example, oil and gas industry. We normally extract oil from deep beneath the sea. or from the sea floor, or we can also say marine biotechnology or seafood processing or seafood industry. So all these industry, they use raw material from the oceans. Okay, so hence the name marine based industry. And lastly, we have forest based industry. These industry use raw material from forests. For example, furniture industry. To make furniture, we need timber, right? So we are using the product of forest as raw material. Pharmaceuticals, we need, for suppose to make quinine. It is a medicine for malaria, and quinine is extracted from the bark of cinchona tree. So forest based product. Third classification, we can say on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, industry can be of public sector, private sector, joint sector, and lastly cooperative sector. What do we understand by public sector? So public sector industry are those industry which are owned and run by the government. So government owns this and run this industry, or the operation is handled by the government. For example, Bhilai Steel Plant, Bharat Petroleum Corporation. So these are the industry run by the government. Secondly, private sector industry. These are the industries run by the private individual or group of private individuals. For example, if I establish an industry tomorrow, that does not become a public industry because I own that particular industry. So this is privately owned. Thus, it becomes a private industry. For example, Reliance. Okay. Thirdly, joint sector industry. As the name suggests, joint. So these industries or this sector industries are jointly operated and run by the private as well as public or government. For example, Gujarat Alkalines, Chemical Limited, Oil India Limited. These are some examples of joint sector industry. Okay, operated and run both by the public, or we can say government, as well as private owners. And lastly, we have cooperative sector industries. These industries are owned and run by the people who form their own cooperatives. Okay, for example, the best example is Amul, Anand Milk Union Limited. So Anand Milk Union Limited is run by the workers or the milkmen. Okay, they pool in their resources, they run the business or they run the industry. Okay, and now the last classification is on the basis of end product or the final product. On the basis of final product, we have basic industries, intermediate industries, and consumer industry. What are the basic industry? So these industry produce material that are used as raw material for other industry. I have already given the example of iron and steel industry. The final product from iron and steel industry is used as a raw material for automobile industry, right? We need aluminum and steel to make a vehicle. We do not get aluminum and steel directly from the nature. It is the iron and steel industry that converts iron ore into iron and steel, and that act as a raw material for automobile industry. Okay, so these are the basic industry that act as a feeder for other industries. Second, intermediate good industry. So these industry produce material, final products which act as a component for the other industry. For example, tires or machine parts. One particular industry produce tires. Okay, this tire is assembled by another industry, or we can say automobile industry. Okay, this is the final product. The automobile industry, they do not again transfer this product. Tire is used as a component for their final product. So this is they act as an intermediate goods, or we can say raw material. Lastly, consumer goods. These are those industries that produce final product that can be directly consumed by the consumers. For example, sugar, or we can say juice, bread. So these are the industry, the product which we can directly use. Now come to the second topic, factors affecting the location of industry. So there are various factors that influence and affect the location of industry. Now let us study about them. Raw material availability. Industry requires raw materials. Okay, so industry tend to be established in close proximity to the source of raw material. For example, an industry that processes tea or produces tea, it is necessary for that particular industry to be located near to the tea plantation. Why? In order to cut the transportation cost, as well as to make sure that the leaves that they get are fresh. Okay, so availability of raw material is also very important. Suppose my raw material is available in Gujarat and I established my industry in suppose West Bengal. Is it possible for my particular industry to run properly? No. So this influences the location of industry. So first, raw material availability. Second, transportation and infrastructure. Good roadways, railways, ports, facilities are very much important for the location of industry or establishment of particular industry in a particular location. Okay, when we have ports or good transportation facilities, that particular industry flourish. Suppose I establish one industry in the middle of the forest, it is very difficult to go to that industry, leave the other things, transport of raw material or movement of labor daily. So it is a problem, right? So industry normally are established where transportation facilities are available or have a good network of transport. Third, availability of water. We know water is very important, not for us but for also industries. So industry tend to be located where ample water supply is there. Energy supply. So to run industry, energy is necessary. So industries are often located near the energy source or reliable power grids. Market access. Industries also requires a good market to sell its product. Suppose if there are no market in the close proximity, that industry cannot flourish or that industry cannot make profits. So market should be there. By market we means area for we can say the field where the product of those industry can be sold. Labor availability. Good and cheap labor availability also influences the location of industry. Okay, if I establish my factory in an area where finding labor is very difficult, then it is not possible for me to run my factory. So labor availability. And lastly, government policies. Government policies also play very important because policies can be favorable or it can be very rigid or difficult or complex. So favorable policies, tax incentives or subsidies, these attract industries. Why do foreign industries actually establish their manufacturing unit in India? Because of this, because ease of doing business or foreign policies, or also there are also other factors like cheap labor and all, but government policies are also very important. So now another topic is the industrial system. So what do we understand by industrial system? So industrial system is a very complex and interconnected processes. Okay, and it has three components: inputs, processes and outputs. So these three components, they combine together, work together in order to produce and distribute goods. So now what are these three components? First, inputs. Inputs refers to the resource and material needed to initiate industrial process. So all the raw material and all the resources that is required to initiate the production process. For example, raw material, labor, capital investments, machinery. So all these are the inputs. Okay, then comes processes. Processes refers to the steps that are involved in this production process or transformation of raw material into finished product process. For example, extraction, manufacturing, quality control. Okay, so these are the different steps involved in processes. And lastly, outputs. Output refers to the final product or produce that we get from this particular process. For example, if it is an automobile industry, we get cars. If it textile industry, we get clothes. If it is electronic, we get different electronic products. Okay, and Also, we can also have intangible things like software. So these also come under output. So input, processes and outputs, these three components, they work together, combine together in order to produce the final product. Now let us see in terms of iron and steel industry. In iron and steel industry, raw material, labor, machinery and capital, these are all the inputs. Okay, and under processes, what we can find? Mining, smelting, refining and rolling. So mining, smelting normally means extraction of metal from the iron ore. Okay, refining that metal because it's impure, and rolling. Normally it is a process where you normally roll the product, this we can say the steel rolling and all. So these are the processes, and the output is iron and steel products, coils, pipes, tubes, automobiles, so on. So inputs, process and output. Now the next is industrial region. So the distribution of industry throughout the world is not uniform. Industry remains to be located or clustered in a particular or specific location because of various factors we have already discussed, right? Various factors attract industries or influence the location of industry. So an industrial region refers to the place where numerous industries are located in close proximity. Okay, and if we see the major industrial regions of the world, we have Eastern North America, we have Eastern, Western and Central Europe, and we have Eastern Asia, not Africa, Eastern Asia. So these are the major industrial region of the world where we find large cluster of industry. In India, the notable industrial regions are Mumbai Pune cluster, Bengaluru Tamil Nadu region, we have Ahmedabad Baroda in Gujarat, Chota Nagpur industrial belt, okay, in Jharkhand, West Bengal and Odisha, Visakhapatnam Guntur belt, we have Gurgaon Delhi Meerut belt, and we have Kollam Tiruvananthapuram. So these are the important industrial regions in India. Now the next topic is industrial disaster. What do we understand by industrial disaster? So industrial disaster refers to the incident or accident that happen or occur within the industrial facilities like mining site, a chemical plant or a factory or a industry or textile industry, whatever it can be. So incident or accident that happen within the facility is called industrial disaster. And there are various factors that cause industrial disaster, such as it can be caused because of the failure of equipment. It can be caused because of human error or negligence or lack of safety measures, or even because of the natural event. You might say how natural event. In Japan, a nuclear site was actually compromised because of a deadly earthquake and tsunami. So that was a nuclear disaster. It was not caused by the human negligence or equipment failure, but because of a natural event or natural disaster. Now, industrial disaster can be devastating because it can lead to loss of life, injuries, environmental pollution, and it also causes economic damages to the communities and also to the economy of a country. Okay, so some examples of industrial disaster are chemical spill, explosions, fire, structural collapse, and there are also many more. So now let us discuss the case study of a Bhopal gas tragedy related to industrial disaster. So Bhopal gas tragedy was a catastrophic industrial disaster in the history of the world and also in the history of India. So what happened in the Bhopal gas tragedy? On the night of 2nd and 3rd December 1984 in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, there was a leak of poisonous gas from a insecticide factory or plant, and that poisonous gas was methyl isocyanide. So since it was a night time, most of the people were sleeping in the neighborhood, okay, and this leak of this poisonous gas caused exposure of nearby people to this gas. As a result, many people were injured and even many people lost their life. The official death toll in 1989 was almost 3,598. It can be more than that. And there are also hundreds of people who actually were injured in this accident. Okay. So this disaster actually raised a serious concern about health and safety regulation in India, as government introduced policies in order to tighten the rule as to make sure that cooperation, accountability is there, and also protection of human rights. So what are the various safety measures? Firstly, safety protocols. Factories and industry must adhere to the safety rules. Okay, there should be regular inspection. There should be regular inspection of the worker, training of the worker, and also the inspection of equipment, whether the equipment are very delicate or whether if they are about to malfunction. Employee safety. Company must prioritize the safety and life of the worker working in the factory. Emergency plan. There should be a pre-emergency plan in case of any disaster in order to keep people safe. Community awareness. People living near to such dangerous plant have to be made aware of the situation. Okay, what to do if there is some leak or there is a disaster or accident in the factory. Waste management. Factories should properly discharge their waste. They should treat their waste before discharging it, so that it does not create health problems or concern for the people living nearby to the factory. So now the next topic is distribution of major industry. So when we talk of the world major industry, it also includes iron and steel industry, textile industries, and information and technology industry. These three industries, they represent distinct eras of economic development. Okay, how? Because iron and steel industries and textile industry are long established industries. Why? On the other hand, information technology industry, it is more recent, it is growing, and it is an emerging industry. Okay, so now let us explore all these three industry in detail. Firstly, we have iron and steel industry. So iron and steel industry is a basic industry. Okay, and what do we mean by basic industry? Because iron and steel produced from iron and steel industry is used in manufacturing of large number of products such as machines, various tools, equipments, and it is also used as raw material in other industries. Okay. In fact, the production of iron and steel, it plays a very important role in the industrial growth of a nation. A nation grows with the growth of iron and steel industries. Now let us see the process of iron and steel industry. So the raw material used in iron and steel industry includes iron ore, coal, limestone, manganese, and so on. But these are the main raw materials. Okay, so the iron ore, it is mixed with coal and limestone, and it is smelted in blast furnace. Okay, it's a process. Smelting, already I said, it is the method of extracting iron from the iron ore. Okay, so once the smelting is done, the iron is now molted, iron ore is now molted, and this once solidifies, it is called pig iron. However, this pig iron is full of impurities. So once these impurities are removed, we get the pure iron. Okay, so this is the process. And when we add carbon to this pure iron, we get steel. Okay, so mixing carbon to the pure iron gives us steel, and steel is very important because it is very flexible. Okay, and it is used in making many products. Let us see the iron and steel industry in the world, or location of iron and steel industry in different part of the world. Iron and steel industry is a raw material based industry, because we know for iron and steel industry, raw materials are needed. Raw materials like coal, iron ore, manganese, limestone, all these raw materials are very much required. So they are located near or in the close vicinity of all these resources. When we talk about USA, the Great Lake region is one of the iron ore industrial region, and the important producing centers are Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Chicago, and Gale. In Europe, the important iron and steel producing centers are Germany, France, Luxembourg, Poland, Belgium, Sweden, Ukraine. We also have Russia and Urals. Japan is also another important producer of steel. And in Japan, Osaka, Kobe region, Tokyo, Yokohama regions are very important. In China, Manchuria and Shandong are the two main regions. So apart from these countries or this region, other countries that are important producers of iron and steel are India, Australia, Brazil, Venezuela, Chile, Algeria, Zimbabwe and South Africa and so on. There are other countries also. When we talk about India, our iron and steel industry is mostly concentrated in the Chotanagpur belt and Deccan Plateau region. Okay, and important centers are Jamshedpur, Bokaro, Bhilai, Rourkela, Durgapur, Bhadravati, Vijayanagara, Visakhapatnam and Salem. So these are the important iron and steel producing centers in India. So now let us see the case study of iron and steel industry in India. We will discuss one center from India and one center from USA. So firstly, iron and steel industry in Jamshedpur in Jharkhand. So when we talk about the production of steel in India, we can say in modern lines, the production of steel started after Jamshedji Tata founded the Tata Iron and Steel Company, or in short TISCO. Okay, it was founded in 1907 where at Saksi, now it is called Jamshedpur, in Singhbhum district of Jharkhand. So in 1907, TISCO was established or founded by Jamshedji Tata. Okay, and why was Saksi or Jamshedpur chosen for the establishment of iron and steel industry? Let us see. Jamshedpur, it is located in mineral rich region. As such, raw materials required for iron and steel industry are easily available. So thus first, location of raw material or availability of raw material in near vicinity, that we have already discussed, right? The factors affecting location of industry. So firstly, raw material. So what kind of raw materials? Iron ore, Jamshedpur or TISCO gets from Singhbhum and Mayurbhanj. Coal we get from coalfield of Jharia and Raniganj. Manganese, limestone and dolomite from Odisha and Chhattisgarh. So availability of raw materials. Secondly, market. Jamshedpur provides huge market for TISCO products. So whatever the products are produced by TISCO, market is readily available. Okay, so market. Thirdly, transportation. Jamshedpur or TISCO, it has a good network of transportation because it is located at the junction of road and railways, or road transport and railway transport. Not only this, it also has link to ports of Kolkata and Mumbai. So thus transportation. Availability of water, because Jamshedpur is located in the confluence of two rivers, Subarnarekha and Kharkai. So this ensures supply of water. And lastly, terrain. It is located in flat terrain, means there are ample of space for the setup of industry, as well as cheap labor is available from the nearby areas. So cheap labor. So see, all the factors that we already discussed is actually shown here, or we can see how the different factors has actually in real life influenced the location of industry. Now let us see iron and steel industry at Pittsburgh in US. So the Pittsburgh Youngstown iron and steel industry is the leading center of iron and steel industry in USA. What are the factors behind it? Raw material, availability of high grade coal from the Appalachian coal field. Secondly, availability of water. Plenty of water is available from the nearby rivers. Third, cheap labor, availability of cheap labor. And fourthly, transportation. The Great Lakes provide easy and cheap inland transportation. So because of these reasons, the Pittsburgh Youngstown is the leading producer of iron and steel industry in USA. So now, after iron and steel industry, we have cotton textile industry. So the textile industry is one of the oldest industry, okay, agro-based industry in the world. So the textile industry requires fibers, natural fibers like cotton, jute, silk. Also, we have artificial fibers today like nylon, polyester, rayon and decron. And now the textile industry, especially the cotton textile industry, have developed in different countries like Britain, India, China, Japan and USA. These are the leading cotton textile industry producing countries in the world. When we talk about India's cotton textile industry, it is one of the oldest industries, okay, and it is known for high quality cotton textile. In fact, the product of cotton textile industry from India and the fabrics like the muslin of Dhaka and calico of Calicut were well renowned before the independence, or we can say during the colonial rule. Okay. And when we talk about the nature of cotton textile industry in India, there is a fine balance between traditional approach and modernity, because in India we find both labor intensive handloom that produces khadi as well as modern industry that does not use much of the labor intensive method, but they have invested in machinery and the textile or the clothes that are produced are machine made. So a mixture of both tradition as well as modernity. When we talk about tradition, Indian weavers, they use traditional skills in order to make jari, embroidery, and this particular industry, it gives employment or it provides employment to large number of people, or we can say a large number of Indians are actually engaged in this activity. Let us see about the history of cotton textile industry. So the first textile mill was set up in Mumbai in 1854. And why was it set up in Mumbai? There are various factors behind it. Okay, what was the various factors? Climate, tropical and moist climate. Secondly, black soil. Black soil is very much favorable for the growth of cotton. So the availability of raw material, port facilities, transportation, huge market. So obviously market is very much needed. Cheap labor, cheap and skilled labor. So availability of cheap and skilled labor was there in Mumbai, and good network of transportation. So because of this reason, cotton textile industry was first established in India in 1854. First means successful cotton textile mill. Today, Mumbai and Ahmedabad are the two important centers of cotton textile industry. But apart from this, textile industry has also been developed in other parts of the countries like Coimbatore, Chennai, Kolkata, Ludhiana, Kanpur and Nagpur. Also, India is engaged in exports of cotton textile. Okay, India exports India exports cotton textiles to USA, UK, Russia, France, Nepal, Singapore and African countries. Now the last topic is information technology. So what do we understand by information technology? Information technology industry is associated with storage, processing and distribution of information. It is an emerging industry. It is a recent industry when we compare it to cotton textile industry and iron and steel industry. Okay. And what are the various factors that actually influence the location of information technology? Raw materials or inputs, we can see the cost and also the infrastructure. When we talk about the important information technology industry, Silicon Valley in California and USA is one of the important or we can say the pioneer information technology region. In India, Bangalore is very much advanced when it comes to information technology, and for this region Bangalore is also called Silicon Valley of India. So now let us recap few important points that we have discussed in this lecture. Firstly, industry refer to the economic activity which is engaged in the transformation of or we can say production of goods, extraction of minerals and provision of service. Industry transform raw material into finished products in simple sense. On the basis of raw material, industry can be divided into or classified into agro-based, mineral-based, marine-based and forest-based. Also, industries can be classified on the basis of size, cottage, small scale, large scale. On the basis of ownership, public, private, joint and cooperative. And lastly, on the basis of their end product, we have basic, intermediate and consumer good industries. When we talk about the factors affecting industrial locations, there are many, such as availability of resource, transportation network, infrastructure, energy supply, market access, cheap labor, government policies. When we talk about industrial system, it is a complex system and it has three components: inputs, process and outputs. What are industrial region? Region where there are high cluster of industries, or where industries are numerous industries are located in close proximity. When we talk of iron and steel industry, it is a basic industry and it supplies raw materials to other industry. It acts as a feeder. Cotton textile industry, it manufactures cloth from raw cotton. And lastly, information technology deal with storage, processing and distribution of information. So with this, I conclude this lecture. I hope my lecture was able to help you clear your doubts, and we will again meet in our next lecture. Thank you.